I can't believe that I've been doing this for 60 days. This is day 60, and I'm going to continue talking about my recovery journey. And so step 3 is the step where I made a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God. So I decided to turn my life and will over to the care of God. This step was really difficult because once you admit that you're powerless and you can't control yourself or other people, then I became willing to trust, or willing to acknowledge that there was a power greater than myself that could restore me to sanity. But then next step is I have to trust that. I have to trust the power greater than myself. And so I have to trust God. But the problem is with trusting God is when you are a control addict, is that you don't believe that God will come through because you never allow him to, because you always have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D if something happens. And if you really can't control that, then you spontaneously try to control and work things out on your own. And so it was really hard for me to trust God because I didn't think that God would come through. I thought many times that he didn't do anything to help me, that I continued to get in worse predicaments. It's like I found myself one day saying, you know what, if you know my rising up and my lying down, then why didn't you step in all these situations? Why didn't you do certain things? Why didn't you bail me out? Why didn't you get me out? But the problem is that when I decided to take on my own problems and resolve them myself, then he took his hands off of it. And so in trusting God, I had to be willing to allow things to happen, to trust God to take care of the circumstance and situation, and know that he was all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful, and that he could handle it. And some things that I thought of is that that I had to learn how to say no during this step. I had to learn to say no to other people, no to circumstance situations, no to myself. I had to set boundaries. That means I had to, if people did things or things happened, I had to set boundaries, and then I had to have consequences for myself if I violated my own boundaries. And so then I had to listen to my own feelings, my wants and my needs. So I had to put myself above everybody else. And what that does is that kind of triggers you because there's an expectation from other people that you're going to put them first. And when you don't, they get angry. And so when they get angry, you feel like you have to change your mind and fulfill their need. And then I had to respond to my external circumstances in a responsible way. So I had to begin to be responsible, which means I had to lean and depend on God. I had to pray, seek God, seek the answers, and trust that whatever he led me to do, or whatever advice or wisdom I received, that it would be okay. Even if it seemed like it was going to be a bad idea, even if it meant I was going to let the lights get cut off, or even if it meant that I was going to have to ride the bus to work, whatever it meant that would happen, then I had to let that happen. And then I had to take care of myself. I had to have self-care, self-love, and I had to also respect others. But self-care is really a difficult thing when you're a control freak, because you always put other people's needs above your own. And I always put other people's needs above my own. I never thought that I needed to take care of myself. And so in time though, and it took a long time for the trust part to come through, and I'm still working on it. To be honest, I still am working on trust. I always come back. Like I said, I always go back through the steps. So in every situation, especially when new things come about, I have to stop and I have to go back to the first, recognize I'm powerless, to, recognize and become willing to acknowledge there's a power greater than myself, and then be willing to trust that power, and to be willing to trust God to handle my circumstances and my situations. And so that's step 3. Step 3 is the turning point. When we learn to trust God with all our heart and lean not to our own understanding, and in all our ways acknowledge him and allow him to direct our paths, things get really good. Things get interesting, scary, bumpy, but you'll never want to go back once you see that. And once I was able to see that God would come through in every situation, he would come through not necessarily how I wanted, but he would come through and he would do things that were amazing, exceeding abundantly above all you could ask, think, or imagine. That's what God does when you trust him. Talk to y'all tomorrow.